Do it.
Bynx, welcome to the channel. I am going to give a quick summary of what happened in Conquest Conquerors for those who are not aware, because having inside information, I was in the Discord. I was in the thing after all, so I was there watching all of this unfold. And what I understand to have happened is you completed a run under the rules we were given, and it was the fastest run in the 3 hours. Then someone in the second dinner, presumably, messed up and said that run didn't count, and so they announced Dara, who had a slower time, as the winner. Then Dara got a faster time in the 48-hour version of the event, because there were prizes for both the 3-hour and the 48-hour run. After that, they finally went back and they were like, oh, yeah, we messed up the Bynx time. Actually, Bynx won the broadcast. And that is what ended up happening. Basically, you won the broadcast, Dara won the 48-hour. Everything sort of worked out the way it should eventually, but that is my understanding. Do I have any order of events there wrong?
No, that was pretty much straight up what happened. Yeah, and you saw everything that happened on the back channel too, because we had a Discord where everyone was talking, and we had some representatives from Second Dinner and everything like that. Or not representatives for Second Dinner, but like tournament organizers who were like coordinating. So really, it just came down to like communication and like chain of command. It was kind of weird because it's Second Dinner, and then also ByteDance, who's does a lot of like the dev stuff on the back end, who's like the publisher or distributor or whatever for Marvel Snap. But yeah, it's been awkward. I will say every other content creator has been like so cool about everything. Like Dara has been incredibly cool. We've been talking the whole time. UKM and so many other people have just reached out to me, just saying like, "Hey, I'm so sorry you're going through this." Just because it's been really awkward, man. It's really weird to like have made a big accomplishment. That's something that I don't think I didn't even believe I could have done it. I think like a lot of people didn't believe I had a chance in hell. I get this crazy run, and then it's just kind of like feels very invalidated because, the official Twitter announcement was that it didn't count. And then, I've just been having to deal with all this stuff, like comments on all my YouTube stuff, comments on everything all over Twitter, everything like that about like people fighting over it. What's most important to me and what I've always just tried to push is that, I still want to take this with positivity. That's why I haven't said anything publicly about it until today, but like right before my stream, just because I think that, I don't know, things like this can cause drama and people can get really salty, like in multiple ways. And like, people from my community were understandably like pretty upset and like, there's like some like fighting, but I think that as far as like all the content creators and how we handled it, everyone's been like incredibly classy with everything and really, really just kind of cool about everything. And, it's just something that was a chain of command, Marvel Snap and this is their first time trying to do an official tournament. Obviously there was a lot of problems. Me and Cam even talked like, I was in your chat like after the stream. I mean, even just the fact that like I wasn't able to like go on and at the end of the broadcast, it's like, hey, Bynx won, and then I could go on and have like this cool interview, and it could have been like a really really cool moment where I get like a lot of recognition in front of a bunch of people who are very casual fans or maybe who never heard of me. Like stuff like that goes a really really long way as a content creator. So for immediately missing that was already kind of like, oh, that sucks. But like tomorrow, like they'll announce that I won, and that's really cool. And then all this happened, so it's been a really rough like 36 hours. But like I said, I'm really happy right now. Stream today went really really well, and everyone, I think from what I'm seeing, everyone's cool. I mean, any animosity or any anger is just kind of going towards like Second Dinner for how it got run. And, they're all people, so I don't support any of that. But I just really hope that they look at this and say, oh, clearly there was a lot of problems. We should completely reformat this next time we do something, just to make sure that all these people, all the content creators and everyone, we gave them like our time. We marketed the hell out of this. We were all, meant to market the hell out of this. And then for like this to happen, it just, it feels a little bit sore. So just my hope is that they look at this and in the future, whenever there's events like this, they just kind of take care of everyone and have a little bit more polish with how they announce the results and everything like that. That's kind of where I'm feeling from it.
I mean, I feel like a little bit more polish is one way to phrase announcing them correctly. It certainly seems like their back end capabilities they were very confident in going into this. Like they were very confident in their back end capabilities, at least to us.
We triple checked, we double checked, we triple checked. Yeah.
Yes. So I do want to actually, like, I did bring you on here for a reason unrelated to drama, though. I'm not, you know, Killer Keemstar. That ain't me. I have a similar beard, but that's actually, I don't have a similar beard. His beard is very cool. I do want to talk about the actual deck that you played.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's a deck you call it Rudish Ramp. It's actually a deck that I've highlighted before in a little bit of a different configuration, but the main, I assume, cube muncher here is the Galactus. So tell me a little bit about the Galactus in the Sandman. Tell me what your strategy was, and what were the cards that stood out to you when you made your snap turn one every time run.
Yeah, that was crazy. So Galactus, I think when the Galactus change happened, I think a lot of people just looked at Galactus, and a lot of people looked at Galactus very linearly previously, where Galactus goes into this deck where you try and slam down Galactus as fast as possible, and you have these support cards that basically guarantees you a win, and you just kind of suffocate your opponent and win. And when Galactus got changed, the card adding 5 extra power is really substantial. So like, first of all, just being able to play it and in like an absolute pinch, just playing it as a 6/7 isn't the most horrendous thing in the world. So like, there's a lot that Galactus actually gained from this change, which is this additional restriction about being ahead. And one thing that I looked at with Galactus is, first of all, like, I think turn 7 Galactus decks, turn 6 Galactus decks are a ton of fun. Try to like stop your opponent's surprise. But what I think the biggest change that a lot of people haven't picked up on is that Galactus is now a great splash card. So if people aren't familiar with other CCGs, splash basically means like you just throw it in, and it's not the focus of the deck, but it's an additional option that your deck has, is to fall back on this Galactus game plan. So really, the deck doesn't have any support for Galactus other than the Galactus itself, and obviously like Electro and Wave to get over the top. But the idea behind Galactus in the Sandman ramp deck, and why I think that this is insane in Conquest specifically, is because there's two amazing things that Galactus does. The first one is the huge surprise factor the first time Galactus drops. So your opponent's like, okay, they're playing Sandman ramp. The first game they played Electro, Sandman, they got ahead, I retreated. Maybe the second game, they missed their ramp, I snapped, they retreated for 1 cube. The third game's going, you're in a really great position, it's turn 5, oh, I'm crushing them. Bam! Galactus just slams down, and you weren't expecting it at all, right? So the surprise factor, the initial time that Galactus hits, is really, really strong and can win you big games, and it can win you big Q games too. But I don't even think that's the most important.
I want to delve in on that real quick, because I know you're going to move to a second thing. But how often are you thinking about taxing your opponent to see Galactus? Like, if you're playing this card and you haven't shown it to them, are you always just snapping? I understand you snap turn 1 all the time, but like, assuming you weren't doing that, are you always just snapping, like if you're playing this deck more generally, because you want to get 4 cubes out of this Galactus when it comes down?
Yeah, so I would always snap before I play the Galactus. So they do have to play that cube tax to do it. But I don't hold the Galactus. So if Galactus is the best play, I don't hold it. And that goes into my second reason. Because the second reason, what I think is the most powerful reason behind having Galactus in your deck, is that once your opponent sees that you have a Galactus, the entire rest of the game, that is the only thing in their mind, is that my opponent can play Galactus on me at any point. So on top of just trying to beat this annoying Sandman ramp deck where you're just doing big power things with Devil Dinosaur, Arnim Zola, Dr. Doom, and these ways to just kind of like pump out power, the whole time they're thinking, but what if they play Galactus, right? So I think that the mental damage that does to your opponent and the ways that it gets them to play differently is where I saw the Galactus advantage so much. Like in one of the games of that 5, my opponent made a play on the deciding game that lost to pass, but they just didn't want to get beat by Galactus again. They would have lost to pass, and I just played leader, and then I won, right? So I really think that the mental damage of making your opponent have to respect the Galactus for the rest of the game is such a cool thing that the card adds, and probably why I think it's more powerful even than the surprise.
So I also wanted to ask you about some of the other cards in the deck. I think the one that stuck out to me is Odin. Odin has like some specific use cases here. You hit a Dr. Doom, you hit a leader, things like that. But Odin is the card that was like, okay, so if we're playing Odin, I mean, like, can we cut Odin for America Chavez? Do we ever want to be doing that? Why are we not doing that? Is it just an argument that, like, okay, we have to speed run, so if we're not getting lucky, it doesn't matter anyway, and that percentage is just not something I want to go for? Is it just not a card you can't include in the deck? If you wanted to play Chavez, would you play it? Did you consider it?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think I've actually talked to you, I think in like your chat or something about the Chavez and Clear. Maybe it was on Twitter. And I think we have like differing opinions on it, and my opinion could definitely be wrong. But my thought about not necessarily needing Chavez in Conquest is that if I'm missing ramp, I'm just giving them a cube and leaving, right? So like the Chavez, where Chavez helps, in my opinion, is that it gets you to your ramp quicker. But in those games where I don't have ramp, I just leave for one cube. So I don't know. I go back and forth about wanting Chavez in the deck and why it would be important. Maybe you can think about cutting like a Spider Hammer and Nebula and just do one of those like smaller cards and then add the Chavez in. But what Odin brings to the table, I think that if you miss your Sandman and you're facing like a bounce player, you still have outs with like, you know, wave, Odin, Zola type things. Like you can wave, you can play the Zola on the wave, and then you could Odin the Zola, and then you just suffocate your opponent. It's nearly impossible for them to beat you. You top it off with something like a Doctor Doom or a double Dinosaur. So there's ways that you can suffocate your opponent with Odin. I think that sometimes even like you just go Galactus on 4, then you play Black Panther into Odin. You know, it can be something where you just like pile a ton of stats in. I think Odin into the leader is really, really great. So that's kind of where my thought process behind Odin comes. It's the wave combination, and then just like working so well with Doom and leader. Adding the Galactus in I think it was the Galactus edition that made it really hard to hold the Chavez too, because I really like the package of like Black Panther, Zola, leader, Doom, Odin. Like those 5 cards for me are just a powerhouse 5 cards to have in your ramp deck. And when you cut one of the pieces, it makes all of them suffer just a little bit.
One thing I think that you really hit on here is that Spider-Ham is insane in basically any ramp deck right now, because the things that beat ramp decks are decks that are okay playing 1 card a turn, which are almost invariably like combo decks, Living Tribunal type stuff. And Spider-Ham is one of the only cards that's actually really, really good into that. Like, you just blow up the Living Tribunal or the Onslaught and they just die on the spot. And that's actually like one of the things that really stuck out to me about this, because the original conception that I saw, a Korean player named Johnson, who was also in the event, extremely talented player, had a similar list.
Third. I don't know if you saw, he got third.
He got third? Let's go. Yeah, I know he was
hit a 32-40.
I know he was grinding. I know that. I know that man was grinding. But yeah, that is, he came up with a similar thing, and the idea with the Galactus was to target Patriot at the time, because they were just hiding behind Invisible Woman. You'd play the Galactus, it would always work. You just sort of blow up anything that they do, that you like, play it off the Invisible Woman lane, because they have like a Patriot and a Mystique under the lane. They blow up the Patriot and the Mystique, and then you just can't ever lose from there. And I think the Spider-Ham is serving a similar role in that it's targeting the things that beat your plan A, right? Your plan A is Electro or Wave Zola Odin, limit them to one play a turn, and you have Electro Sandman, you have Wave Zola Odin, and you have the methods of winning games against normal decks that are limited to 1 play a turn. Spider-Ham and Galactus give you outs on the decks that are comfortable doing that, basically. So what were your thoughts on Spider-Ham? Because that I think is like, I would say I would not play an Electro deck without it.
Yeah, dude. Especially in Conquest, man. Spider-Ham's just, it's so mean, dude. Just solos decks, dude. I literally, in that run, I faced a Tribunal deck, and I just kept drawing Spider-Ham. It's like, oh, no Onslaught. Oh, no Living Tribunal. That sucks for you. Good luck trying. Good luck trying to win the game, dude.
Yep.
It's just, and it was snap every time. I was like, I have Spider-Ham. I'm just snapping because it has to hit one of the cards that are combo. Like, oh, your Iron Man's a 5/0. Good luck having enough power to, you know, beat me out with your Living Tribunal combo, dude. Good luck. I think it's just crazy. I mean, and this survived a nerf. This is really fun. So this deck,
It got better.
Practice with.
It got better, right? Like, it doesn't get Killmongered now. It's a better card. I'm more interested in a 2/2. There's less competition for it. It's actually just a better card.
Yeah. The 1 power makes a difference for sure. And then, not being able to have it get pinged off and you know, annoy you is great. But so interestingly, this deck was the deck that I won my first Infinite Conquest with last month, and I didn't even practice with this deck. I literally just like pulled it out like during the tournament because I was trying to play this Thanos 5x5 deck, and I'd done a lot of practice with it with like Legion, lockdown cards, and I was really inspired with Thanos after seeing like a bunch of stuff from like Lammy and trying to do it, and it just wasn't working. I was just like, you know what, well, whatever. Like this is what won me the last game, and literally like I just pulled this deck that had the pre-nerf Spider Ham in it, still, and it just works just kind of like the exact same way. Just an absolute banger of a card, a Conquest superstar, and honestly, it's no matter what deck you're playing, it feels really hard not to have Spider Ham in your deck and go into Conquest because it's solos decks, man. Having a 2/2 that solos decks it's demoralizing for your opponent.
Yeah. There is one more card I do want to ask you about, and it's like the quasi star of the deck, right? Like, how much are you a Sandman deck when you play this? How much are you, what matchups are you like, God, I need this Sandman? How effective is he for you?
For me, it's a little bit less on matchups and less, or more how my curve works out, because I tend to play with this deck. I tend to just really try and push the amount of power you can get to the limit, and then get to turn 6 and assess, whether or not like there's Sandman down or anything like that. Do I think that based on what they have, I have the tools to win? And then you could just snap and retreat accordingly. I think that that's like the straightforwardness of like knowing on 6 what your plays are, what your opponent will likely play, and what's most likely to win. I think is where this deck is such a beast when you're in Conquest. And a lot of it comes down to curve. So like if I'm playing, let's say like a bounce deck, right? Like a kitty bounce deck, I'm trying to get Sandman out as soon as possible every single game. So that's waving into it, that's electroing into it. If I'm playing Electro on 3 and I have Sandman, it's nearly impossible to not go the Sandman route unless I've already assessed that they don't have a counter card and I have like a crazy Black Panther Zola Odin combo, right? Because 40 power in 2 lanes. I faced like a Nimrod deck, I think, during it, and I was looking at it, I was like, oh, I can play Sandman here, but I have Zola, Panther, Odin. There's no, like their deck goes big, but you cannot beat 40 power in 2 lanes, like with so many decks out there. As long as you kind of have a good read that they don't have Shang-Chi and they don't have, things like Shadow King or anything like that, they can fight it.
Yeah.
But a lot of times when you play Electro, you almost always play Sandman. It's very, very hard not to play the Sandman after the Electro. It's so much better for your deck than your opponent, right? But the biggest thing I think is when you wave. Because when you wave and you have the Sandman there, you can run into a lot of issues. Like let's say you don't have another 5-drop. You don't have the Devil Dinosaur, or maybe you have the Black Panther, but it doesn't feel like the Black Panther has a good lane to go into. And you wave, sometimes you have to play a 6-drop on that turn 4. And try and win the game that way and give them one extra turn without suffocating them with Sandman. Play the 6-drop on turn 4, then play the Sandman on 5, and just kind of see where you're at. But if I have the Devil Dinosaur in hand, because I think that Sandman and the Devil Dinosaur, even after a wave, is just a really, really powerful combo. The Devil Dinosaur, I think, is another star of the deck that a lot of people don't understand why it's so good in these ramp decks, but
it's
just 5'11", 5'13 is, big card is big, man.
Big number.
So many decks, like when ramp was getting kind of like established, and Sandman ramp once Sandman got up to 5/5 were established, so many decks weren't running the Devil Dinosaur. I never understood, because even before Sandman was around, I think Devil Dinosaur just a shoe in these ramp decks. But yeah, I think that it's a bit of dependent on what you know from your opponent. And the biggest decision is when you wave. And if I have the Devil Dinosaur, a lot of times I'll just play the Sandman out after the wave, because I think that with Devil Dinosaur being able to Zola it, or with Devil Dinosaur being able to follow up with like a leader or a Doom, I'm almost always winning those games. But if I can't do anything on turn 5 after I wave in a Sandman, I'm usually just playing my 6-drop and just going for max power that game.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so we've talked about a couple of the individual cards. I want to bring the full deck back into focus. Do you have any specific tips for someone who's like never played this deck, just wants to get some easy wins, maybe not snapping as aggressively as you? What would you say to someone who has never played this deck as the stop the count winner of Conquest Conquerors broadcast section? What would your advice be?
Yes. So a couple things is make sure you play all the cards in the same lane early. So you have Nebula, you have Spider-Ham, Electro Wave. Those are the cards that you're going to play before turn 4. Play them all in the same lane almost all of the time. Unless you can see that you have like a Doom into Odin is probably going to be your best play. Stacking them and giving yourself options with the Arnim Zola and being able to target specific cards, I think is really, really important with this deck. I see a lot of people spread out their resources. They get to turn 6 or they get to turn 5 and they don't really have a plan with the Arnim Zola. It's just a dead card in your hand. You should always be working to have an open lane to like be able to turn 5, turn 6, be able to Black Panther Zola, or maybe sometimes Devil Dinosaur into Zola. So make sure that you're keeping space available. And usually what I just do is as much as possible, I try and stack those early cards in the same lane. And it's also good because it helps you fight for that lane. And maybe, you get ahead with like a Nebula, a Spider-Ham, a Wave all in one lane. Maybe that lane's just one. And then you could use, your big cards for the rest of the game to attack like one or both of those other lanes and just put them into a really bad position. And, especially with the Galactus, not only the Zola, the Galactus, having multiple lanes available for the Galactus is always going to be great. So I think that's a pretty important first part would be kind of stacking your cards to start. Do you feel like you do that when you play ramp a lot?
Usually my concern is, a lot of the time, yes, because of Galactus, but as like a secondary concern, there's like, all right, what happens if I have to plan for leader into Odin or a Zola thing? So like, there's this tension between allowing yourself to have lanes to play the Galactus on, because obviously like there are lanes that prevent you from doing that at all, and the ability for you to do like your game-ending Sandman combos, like Doom Odin, leader Zola, leader Doom. Those are all going to rely on you having space across the board. So there is that like inbuilt tension. I mean, honestly though, like there probably aren't that many games where you're actually playing 1, 2, 3 curve. That seems like it's actually like
rare,
pretty rare,
especially with no Chavez.
Yeah, like it's probably happening like, I don't know, sub 10% of the time. So it's not like happening forever. In terms of snaps, you're just leaving anytime someone snaps you and you don't have ramp. Like if they ever try to like tax you in a game that you don't have ramp, you're just out of there most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, if it's turn 2 and I can still draw into ramp and maybe I've already established a Nebula, like if I've already played some of my early cards and they're taxing me to draw into my ramp, sometimes I'll take the risk there. I mean, it's hard because it's hard to compare like what happened the second run that I had, the really fast one, because I was a maniac. I snapped on turn 1 every single game I played out. I think I retreated twice the entire time. Right, so like that was kind of like but like thinking to the one before that, the one that I won right before the crazy one. Yeah, I think that if they're snapping you on 2 without ramp, and maybe you can draw into it. If you've gotten a Spider-Ham or a Nebula, their early turns haven't been too bad. You can probably accept it and try and push towards it. If it gets to turn 3 and I don't have ramp, unless there's a insane reason why, such as maybe like a Titan is out and that leads to a really good line that I can do, or like there's like an Elysium or some other way that I've found a ramp already there, you should always be retreating for 1 cube. If your deck isn't ramping, your deck doesn't work. On turn 4, you don't do anything. Like if you can't do anything on turn 3, you're not gonna be able to do anything on turn 4 unless you draw into one of your cards that are really shitty to play on turn 4. So I 100%, and I have to remind myself of this a lot. If someone snaps it at you on turn 3 or even on turn 4 and you haven't hit your ramp, just get out of there. Just get out of there. Reset the game.
All right, Bynx, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It's been a while since the Cube Rush days, the duo tournament we did together. Like we've been here since 20 viewers. Like we've been here for forever, man. It has always been a pleasure, and it is once more a pleasure to talk to you. Do your plugs. Point at the sign above you. It's actually a little bit out of shot, but like it is there.
Yeah, Bynx Plays. Come follow me on Twitter. Come follow me on YouTube. I have all of it, so it's all thrown in chat. So if you guys are interested in checking my stuff out, I think I play the way that the kind of content I create is a little bit different than Cambest. He's much more focused on the competitive side. What I do, it's almost always ladder. I do a little bit of just another reason why I think that no one thought I was going to be able to win. I play almost exclusively ladder. I usually play Conquest like maybe 2 or 3 times a month. But what I do is I do off meta decks pretty much every single day. So if you're looking for things that are a little bit different, if you want to try and play decks that people normally wouldn't expect, or if you're trying to just stay away from like the top 6 decks on the tier list, which are really strong to play, and if you're trying to compete as much as possible, you can go for. You're looking to have fun. I still think a lot of my decks are still pretty damn competitive, which I take a lot of pride in. I think that as someone who can create decks that are a little bit off of the beaten path. I definitely think that my off meta decks might be for you, and it might be something that you really really enjoy. So there's my Twitch, there's my YouTube in the stream, and yeah, it's Bynx_plays on everything: Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, everything like that. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on too, man. It's always good to chat.
Did you see the crap I played in the 48-hour stuff? I was just throwing stuff at the wall. I turned into you. I played Toxic Sarah and High Evo Thanos. And like they're both they both won. They both completed the conquest, but they weren't fast enough. But like I played just like I went deep into the tank. I was like, all right, I need to surprise people, because that's the lesson I took, was like I need to get these 8 cubers. And it was just like, okay, we did it. We did it. We got some 8 cubers. We got it going. And one other lesson that I realized in retrospect, because it's the Conquest Conquerors timed event, right? You know what this deck does really well is it doesn't have a ton of animations. It's faster.
Whoa, that's really interesting.
I realized
all the animations are fast.
Yeah. Like there's no Thanos 2 minds, like Mind Stone 2 draws, Lockjaw rolls a thing. There's none of that. It's just things happen. They're all fast animations. With the exception of Galactus, who better be winning you 8 cubes. Like it's all just fast stuff. I didn't even think about that until afterwards, and then I was like, oh yeah, there's not really a lot of like perpetual end of turn stuff. There's no Cyclops pew pew. There's just, like, even Nebula is a little faster than Cyclops. It's interesting. I noticed it.
Yeah. And when you're playing one card a game, it's a lot easier to make a decision for you and your opponent, right?
Yes.
So it's not like you have to sit there like thinking about all these combinations of games. Both you and your opponent are like, all right, I get one card.
You
What's
play
the best
one card.
Okay, end turn, right?
There's no roping. It's just you limit the amount of decisions that can possibly be made, and then you get a fast run. Like I didn't think about this at all. But I think it was a very, very good call for this format, both in terms of animations, in terms of making your opponents invest in the game, and in terms of creating situations where your opponents think they can win because they beat, 4 of the cards in your hand, but not the 5th, right? They beat Doom, but they don't beat Leader. They beat Leader, but they don't beat Doom or Zola. And there's just like a bunch of those situations in the deck. And I think that is another thing that must have really helped you in terms of getting people to snap back, which is my biggest problem whenever I try to play stuff in this format.
Yeah, man. I think getting people to snap back and getting people invested, and I think that like I said with the Galactus, I think like mental damage actually is real, dude. People lose. And they'll lose bad, and they'll be like, screw this guy, I'm getting out of here, and like retreat when they have like 4 cubes left or something, right? And they're just like, yeah, whatever, you win, you piece of crap. And it's like, yeah, thank you. On to the next
All
one,
right. It's okay to BM Bynx 2023. We have learned that today. Tactical BM is the name of the game to win Conquest Conquerors. Bynx, congratulations once again. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you. Have a good one, dude.
Dude, I appreciate you too, man. Thank you all. Thank you to you, and thank you to the besties, man. Y'all are awesome. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Salute.
Peace.
Later.